Under the glow of 1,000 studio lights, a man in a suit stands before a roaring crowd. His timing is sharp, his words sting with truth and humor. And yet behind that grin, there's the trace of a survivor. For 2 decades, Jimmy Kimmel has been America's nightly companion. The man who makes the country laugh, even when there's little to laugh about. But his road to that stage wasn't paved with applause. It was littered with rejections, doubts, and the constant fear of fading away. From radio stations that fired him for being too weird, to TV executives who thought he'd never last a year, Kimmel was the underdog no one saw coming. So how did a sarcastic kid from Las Vegas rise from obscurity to become one of late night's most trusted and most controversial voices? This is not just the story of jokes and ratings. It's the story of resilience, reinvention, and the healing power of laughter. Jimmy Kimmel was born in Brooklyn, New York, in 1967. The eldest of 3 children in a working-class Italian-Irish family. His father, James Kimmel, was a disciplined man who worked for American Express, while his mother, Joan, was a homemaker with a quiet sense of humor that could light up even the dullest family dinner. When Jimmy was 9, the Kimmels moved to Las Vegas, a city of neon dreams and loud laughter, though for the shy boy, it felt more like exile than opportunity. At school, Jimmy wasn't the class clown. He was the kid in the back, sketching cartoons, mimicking teachers under his breath, and listening to the radio late into the night. Those unseen hours with the voices of Johnny Carson and David Letterman would change his life. "They were my imaginary friends," he once said, "teaching me how to make people listen." Life at home was a balance of warmth and chaos. His parents encouraged hard work and Catholic discipline, but humor was the Kimmel family's survival tool. When money was tight, laughter kept the walls from closing in. Jimmy learned early that a good joke could stop an argument, or start one. One memory stayed with him forever: hosting a fake radio show in his bedroom at age 12, complete with jingles and mock interviews. His parents would sit outside the door, pretending to call in as guests. It was silly, small, but for Jimmy it was magic, the feeling of being heard. That mix of humility, curiosity, and stubborn joy became his foundation. Long before the fame and the cameras, he was just a boy in the desert, speaking into a plastic microphone, chasing the sound of laughter that would one day echo across America. When Jimmy Kimmel first entered broadcasting, it wasn't through the grand doors of a TV network. It was through a creaky radio booth at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. His voice was nervous, his jokes often too dry, his timing unpredictable. But something about that imperfection felt real. "I didn't sound like a radio guy," he'd later recall. "I sounded like me. And that was both my biggest flaw and my only hope." His early years were a carousel of rejection. Fired from one radio station after another, in Seattle, Tucson, Palm Springs, Kimmel carried his dreams from one cardboard box to the next. Some bosses said he was too sarcastic. Others said he didn't sound friendly enough. But behind every firing came a quiet, stubborn thought: "I'm not done yet." In the mid-1990s, fate intervened. While working as a sports announcer in Los Angeles, Kimmel met a construction worker turned comedian, Adam Carolla. The two bonded over absurd humor and relentless wit, eventually creating The Man Show on Comedy Central. It was crude, loud, and unapologetically male, and it made them famous overnight. For Kimmel, The Man Show was both a blessing and a trap. It gave him recognition but painted him as the frat guy comedian, a label he would spend years outgrowing. Still, it proved one thing: Jimmy could command an audience. He had gone from unpaid radio stints to national television, from being told he wasn't funny enough to hearing millions laugh at his jokes. But deep down, he wanted more than laughter. He wanted purpose. And soon, that desire would push him into the most unpredictable chapter of his life: hosting a late-night show that no one thought would survive. In January 2003, ABC took a gamble. They handed a brand-new late-night slot to a man known mostly for beer jokes and offbeat pranks. His name was Jimmy Kimmel, and almost nobody believed he could pull it off. The network needed a fresh face to compete with Letterman and Leno, but critics dismissed him as too edgy, too sarcastic, too unpredictable. The early episodes of Jimmy Kimmel Live were chaos. Guests talked over each other, jokes fell flat, and ratings sank. Some nights, Kimmel seemed to be holding the show together with nothing but irony and caffeine. "We were dying out there," he later admitted. "But I couldn't let it end like that." So he reinvented himself. The frat boy humor gave way to something smarter, warmer, more self-aware. Instead of pretending to be the cool host, Kimmel leaned into his awkwardness. He laughed at himself. He invited chaos, and somehow made it part of the charm. Slowly, the audience started to see the difference. He wasn't trying to be Carson or Letterman. He was trying to be Jimmy. Then came the viral hits, mean tweets, This Week in Unnecessary Censorship, and the ongoing fake feud with Matt Damon that became a pop culture legend. Viewers tuned in for the comedy but stayed for something deeper: authenticity. By the late 2000s, Jimmy Kimmel Live had found its rhythm. His monologues blended humor with honesty, turning the nightly talk show into a mirror of American life. Absurd, painful, and funny all at once. He wasn't just telling jokes anymore. He was building a connection. And as his voice grew louder, so did his influence. From political satire to emotional confessions, Kimmel's late-night stage became a place where laughter met truth. The underdog from Las Vegas had done the impossible. He had turned the midnight hours of television into a stage for sincerity. And soon, that sincerity would carry him to heights and heartbreaks he never expected. By the mid-2010s, Jimmy Kimmel Live had become a cornerstone of American television. What began as a scrappy, uncertain experiment had evolved into a nightly ritual for millions. Kimmel's signature blend of sarcasm and sincerity redefined the late-night format. His show was no longer just about laughs. It was about feeling something real. When Jimmy hosted the Oscars in 2017, it marked his arrival at the top of Hollywood's comedy hierarchy. The boy who once got fired from radio stations was now standing on the world's biggest stage, cracking jokes in front of Meryl Streep and Denzel Washington. His charm wasn't in the punchlines, it was in his disarming humility. Audiences saw a host who didn't just mock the stars, but understood them. Then came the moment that changed everything. In 2017, his newborn son, Billy, underwent emergency heart surgery. When Kimmel returned to his show, his voice trembled as he described the ordeal. The tears weren't rehearsed. The laughter that followed wasn't scripted. America saw not a comedian, but a father, terrified and grateful. His emotional monologue sparked nationwide conversations about healthcare, compassion, and what it means to be human on television. That night, Jimmy Kimmel transcended comedy. He became a voice of empathy in a divided nation, proving that laughter could still carry weight, still build bridges. Awards followed. Emmys, global recognition, invitations to host the Oscars again in 2018 and 2023. But what mattered most was what people said when the cameras turned off. He makes me laugh, but he also makes me think. At his peak, Jimmy Kimmel wasn't just a late-night host. He was America's storyteller, using humor not to hide pain, but to heal it. But even as his influence grew, Jimmy Kimmel learned that fame always comes with a shadow. With every heartfelt speech and viral joke came another round of headlines, and not all of them kind. Old sketches from The Man Show resurfaced, drawing criticism for sexism and crude humor that no longer fit the times. Clips of Kimmel wearing blackface in past skits reappeared online, igniting outrage. He apologized, calling those moments embarrassing and thoughtless, and admitted they were products of a younger, ignorant version of himself. But in an age of cancellation and instant judgment, apologies were rarely enough. Then came the political storms. His emotional monologues about gun control and health care, sparked by his son's illness, divided audiences. Supporters praised him for using his platform for good. Critics accused him of getting too political and abandoning comedy. Late-night TV, once an escape from reality, had become a battlefield of ideology. And Kimmel stood right in the middle, yet through it all, he didn't retreat. He learned, evolved, and often laughed at himself. "If you're going to make fun of the world," he said, "you'd better be ready to be made fun of too." His honesty, sometimes uncomfortable, sometimes brave, became both his weapon and his shield. He never claimed perfection, only perspective. And that humility, in an industry built on ego, kept him standing. Kimmel had survived controversy not by dodging it, but by facing it head-on, with humor, apology, and growth. Behind the laughter and flashing lights, Jimmy Kimmel's life was often far less polished than it appeared on screen. Success had made him one of the most recognizable faces in entertainment, but it also made him a target of constant scrutiny and exhaustion. Long nights, relentless production schedules, and the pressure to stay funny every single day began to take their toll. His first marriage had quietly fallen apart years earlier, the casualty of ambition and distance. Friends described him as someone who gave everything to his work, often at the cost of his own peace. "Comedy is a strange thing," he once admitted. "It saves you, and it breaks you, sometimes in the same night." Then, in 2017, came the heartbreak that redefined him. His newborn son, Billy, was diagnosed with a congenital heart defect and needed immediate surgery. For the first time in his career, Kimmel's humor deserted him. Standing before the audience days later, his voice cracked as he told the story. There were no punchlines, just raw truth. And in that moment, America saw not a performer, but a father trembling with fear and love. That vulnerability changed everything. It reshaped his purpose, softened his humor, and deepened his empathy. He began to see comedy not just as entertainment, but as connection, a way to remind people that pain and laughter can coexist. Jimmy Kimmel found redemption not through reinvention, but through honesty. He didn't escape his struggles. He embraced them. And by doing so, he reminded millions watching at home that behind every smile, even his own, there's a story worth listening to. Over 2 decades after his uncertain debut, Jimmy Kimmel Live stands as one of the defining voices of modern American television. While other hosts chased punchlines, Kimmel pursued connection, blending comedy with conscience, sincerity with satire. He made late-night television feel human again. In an era when viral trends fade overnight, his sketches became timeless. Mean tweets turned celebrity self-deprecation into an art form. His fake feud with Matt Damon became one of pop culture's longest-running inside jokes. But beyond the laughs, it was the moments of stillness. His trembling voice after national tragedies, his tears for his son, that defined him. Younger hosts like Trevor Noah, John Oliver, and Hassan Minhaj cite him as a pioneer of authentic humor, a style that doesn't hide behind irony. Kimmel showed that vulnerability could coexist with wit, that you could be funny and feel deeply. His legacy isn't measured by ratings or awards, though he has plenty of both. It's measured by the millions who saw themselves in his laughter, the father afraid for his child, the worker staying up late for a moment of joy, the skeptic who still believes people can be kind. In an industry obsessed with reinvention, Jimmy Kimmel's greatest achievement was staying real. He didn't become a caricature of fame. He stayed a man who laughed to be heard, and listened to be understood. His name may be printed on studio walls, but his true imprint lies elsewhere, in the quiet realization that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do on television is simply tell the truth and smile. From a shy kid in Las Vegas to one of America's most beloved late-night hosts, Jimmy Kimmel's journey has never been about perfection. It's been about perseverance. He stumbled, failed, learned, and grew under the blinding lights of fame. Through every controversy, every sleepless night, and every tear shed on camera, he became something few entertainers ever do. Genuine. Kimmel's story isn't just a chronicle of comedy, it's a testament to resilience. He proved that laughter isn't the opposite of pain. It's what carries us through it. And in a world that often feels divided and cynical, his brand of humor, honest, flawed, deeply human, continues to remind audiences that empathy still matters. As the studio lights dim and the applause fades, one truth remains. Jimmy Kimmel didn't just make America laugh, he made it feel. Because behind every joke there's a heart that once broke and found its way back to joy.